Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be painting a Roach for my new Zerg / Alien Hives army. Now I prepped this one at the same time as I did the Baneling. So I want to talk a little bit about the whole Slapchop priming method, because I got some really good comments and I wanted to address them and talk about why I'm doing it the way that I'm doing. So first, with this Roach, we're going to be using black, which I think is going to kind of eat away with a lot of the Slapchop because, well, black's black. But while I'm putting on the layer here, I'm doing it the exact same way as I did the brown, gobbing it on pretty thick. Now, in the comments to the Baneling video, I had a lot of people mention that they primed the initial black coat with a rattle can, but then they used dry brushing, first with a gray and then with a white, to build up that subtle transition to the white that they're going to paint the contrast or the speed paint over top of. And I think that's a perfectly good method. I think you'll get probably a much better gradient between the two. You'll be able to control it a lot better. The reason why I'm using double rattle cans here is because part of this is an experiment in speed. If I go the fastest way, what do I lose or sacrifice in terms of quality? So while I fully acknowledge that I would probably get a better base priming for Slapchop by doing a rattle can followed by dry brushing, I wanted to try it once with a shot of the black and then just directly shooting it over again with the white to see what kind of transition I got, to see how well it worked, and to see if I was happy with it, because I was able to paint all those Banelings in a single evening. And so that's pretty darn fast. So I'm going to take a look at the whole army. We'll see how it goes. Maybe some of the next batch, some of the additional units I get, maybe I'll try those with the dry brush approach and see if I like that better. But since I primed this Roach at the same time as I did the Baneling, it was with the rattle cans. So just like what I did with the first one, a nice generous coat, not too thick of course, but put it all over and wait till it dries. Now, when I was looking to try the speed paint Slapchop method, one of the things I was worried about is having to buy a massive box of paints and probably only using some of them, and the most important color was the purple. And I wasn't sure if I would like it, especially given the fact that the starter box of speed paints just came with this one specific purple. But when I saw that the name of it was Swarm, I thought, yeah, it'll be just fine. And sure enough, as I started putting the color on here, you can't see it too well on the darker areas because that's I mean, the black and the purple kind of blend together, but when I put some on the white, I thought, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. Nice and bright, but not looking like, you know, fluorescent or a little bit too, it's not too much. It looks exactly like I wanted it to, so I was really, really happy with it. I think when I painted the back of the bug here, the thorax, if I believe that's what it's called, I really got to see a good, you know, a big patch of the model with that color on it, and I was really happy with the way that it turned out. So with the carapace done, and the purple area underneath, the model's just about finished, which kind of amazes me, but there's those spikes, and you got to make sure you do those spikes justice. So I used Vallejo Blue Violet here for a base coat on those spikes, and then after that I'll go back and do a couple layers to give them a little bit of a little pop, a little highlight to give them some depth. But once those were done, there was just the feet and the claws, and this guy's all finished. I was amazed how fast this went. Okay, so for this part, just like with the spikes on his back, I got some splaining to do because I'm using opaque paints. Now, when I painted the Hydralisk, I used the bone-colored speed paint, and I wasn't all that impressed with it. I painted it over a nice bright white surface, but it looked a little too dirty for me. I don't know, maybe I didn't have a good enough base coat on it or what have you, but I didn't like the way that it looked. So instead, I went back to using some of my opaque paints to paint the claws here on the pincers to get a more of a nice, clean, solid look to the bone on there. Now, it could be that I didn't have a very good white undercoating, and so the speed paint didn't show up enough, but I didn't want to have to mess around with continually painting different shades of white and trying different kinds of dry brushing or anything like that to try and get it right, because whatever I did to this bug, I was going to have to do with the rest of them to make sure it all looked uniform. So for the teeth, the claws, the feet, I decided we'll just use opaque for this part. Okay, so now it's time to do something with those spikes, because right now they look too bland. They look like a Happy Meal toy. So we got to give them some depth. So getting some kind of a white, a bright white, a slightly gray or blue white, just paint at the tips of the spikes a little bit of white to give them some shine to them. And then we're going to go back afterwards and put a purple wash around the base so that the base of the spikes fade into the rest of the model. So going back to that tried and true method of 3 layers of paint, only this time we started with the mid-tone and then darkened and lightened, but it still works. So I got myself a nice fine tip brush and just put a line of purple wash. I suppose you could also use a black, but I thought the purple might blend in a little nicer around the larger spikes, and just to kind of give a bit of a transition between the spike and the shell at the bottom. Looks pretty good. You could do another layer of white on the tips just to really brighten that tip top part, but I think it looks pretty good. Now, while I was staring at it thinking it's just about done, what was bugging me about the spikes looking like a Happy Meal toy now was bugging me about the claws. So I actually used the speed paint as a wash on top of the bone here, and I think it worked out pretty well. And there she is, all done. I'm happy with the way that it turned out. I think the speed paints are doing exactly what they should. Definitely good enough.